All right, keep talking.
Yeah, so I really think, again, it's just like a litmus test. So if you are pursuing a career because you want to help people or you want to better people's lives, or in your everyday life you're willing to help that person whose car's broke down on the side of the road, just little things like that. I think how you live this life and what energy you give off and what energy you make sure you instill in yourself, that's where your energy is going to continue even after your body's, out of commission. But if you're one of those people who's just all about like me, doesn't care about growth as much as they just care about materialization, I think your energy is going to go somewhere you're not too happy about.
Yeah, probably not where you're actually supposed to go.
But again, that's just a belief. I can't state that as a fact. I don't know for sure, but that's my hope, because that's how I live my life, is just trying to do what's best for both myself and other people. And I think that's really all you can hope to do and acquire the skill sets necessary to do that.
Right. I think when people are younger, they need to focus more on themselves and figure out who they are and what they want to do. And as you get older and progress through life, you'll have a solid foundation of who you are and what you're doing, and that'll kind of just take you exactly where you want to go. So like when you're younger, you sit back, you think, you figure your life out a little bit, or at least some sort of path, and you work on like manifestation and all those other sorts of things. And then hopefully if you do it correctly and you do your due diligence throughout your lifetime, those things will start to happen for you, and that's just kind of where you want to go on your path.
Well, and tying into that too, I think about energy in terms of, like, I almost picture everyone with a bucket on their head. So if you're just giving, your bucket's going to be empty, and then you can't help yourself or anyone else. So I agree with what you're saying. Initially, you do need that self-devotion and self-care, so that way you can fill up your bucket and then help other people fill theirs. And that's where I think there's just too much of polarization in that, where either people only want to fill their own bucket or they're only focused on filling other people's. I think you need that dichotomy of it.
I think people think of life as too black and white. Kind of what you're saying with like polarization. There's so much in between. There's a lot of gray area, and it's almost like life is like a spectrum. So there's good decisions, there's bad decisions, but there's good decisions that have bad outcomes and bad decisions that have good outcomes. It all depends on, how subjective it is,
Mm-hmm. Well, and in what lens you put on it.
Right.
So for me, a good decision could be a stupid, horrible decision to somebody else. Right. That's what is just crazy to me is, and I think a big part of, especially like in your 20s or when you're developing who you are as an adult and what path you want to choose, you can't worry too much about what other people are saying to you or about you, because they're not you. They're not going to live with the life you're setting up for yourself. And so a big part of that is like just understanding what's good to you may not be good to other people, but as long as it's not harming them and you're doing what's good for the overall energy in yourself and in others, that's...
Right. I remember Will Smith said the best things in life are on the other side of fear. And I think that holds true to almost every single person on the planet. It's almost like a law in a way. And if you can get over yourself in that negative talk that you may have about yourself in your head, like I can't do that, or like that's I won't get that, or that that girl is too hot for me or something like that. Yeah. If you can get over that and just go out there and do those things and conquer that little voice and just do those small things every single day, I think you'll see an immaculate change in your life over the course of the next 10 years.
Rewrites the script.
Yeah.
What's funny to me about that though is really break it down. When someone, let's say again, there's like a really cute girl at a bar,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, oh, I won't get her. Break it down statistically speaking. If you don't even go up to her, the odds of you getting that girl are 0%.
Yeah, there's.
If you go up and talk to her, at least there's a
And that's your
percent
fear
chance.
is that there's 0%
Yeah.
that it doesn't happen.
And if
or
you-
it's not happening.
Yeah, it's almost like a catch-22.
Exactly. So it's like, great. If you're so worried about not getting her, the worst thing you could do is not go up and say anything, because then you're just going to be that creepy dude staring at her from across the room.
Right.
But if you at least go up, make an honest effort, and be yourself, even if that person rejects you, it's like, cool, you feel like crap for a couple minutes, and then you're never going to see them again, and if you do, they won't remember you. So
Right.
at least
Or
you
maybe
put
they
the
come
odds
up
in
to
your
you
favor.
next time. You never
But
know.
everyone's going to respect you for coming up to them and, doing something that would have been normally.
As long as you don't do it in a weird way.
Yeah. Well,
That's
no,
true.
we're not creeps. That's true.
Yeah, if you have good intentions and go over there and just sack up a little bit, then
What's up, honey? I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
good things will happen for you.
Yeah.
True. But I mean, also, like, kind of on the other end of things, if you really are worried that when you go up to the girl you want to get, you're not going to get her, okay, great. Go back to the drawing board. Like, what kind of guy is going to get that girl? If you really are prioritizing having a girl like that, what do you need to change in your life to get you to the point where you can feel confident going up to that girl and get her? So is that working out? Is that, watching people public speaks, you gain confidence when you're talking? Like, actually figure it out. Because that's one thing, personally, I just can't stand, whether it's someone else or even myself saying, like, oh, I can't do that thing. And then they do nothing to change it. It's like, then you have no reason to complain because you're choosing
everything
that.
if you just go about it the way you're supposed to.
Exactly.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works.
I learned that when I accidentally flooded my house because I left the cup inside of the water holder.
Oh.
and we had to pull out the fridge, but it was on like a weird slant house put back in. I was like, I have no idea how to fix this. I don't get in trouble, and it's just like that was my initial thought. I was like, oh shoot, we can't do this. And then you figure it out. My sister's like, oh, I know how to do it. I'm like, well then just do it. Like, yeah. So it's got an answer.
Yeah, that's I don't, and I'll be honest, like I've struggled with that throughout my lifetime, but as you become more aware of it, I think a lot of people just aren't even aware of that. Like, they're not even consciously aware that they do that to themselves. They self-sabotage. And I think there needs to be some sort of awakening for a lot of people so they don't, when they're 90 years old, they don't have so much resentment towards themselves where they're like, what the fuck did I do with my life? Like, why did I not go out and make those risks when I was younger, when I had the opportunity? Or
So now that you're younger and we know that and we're taking these risks, or for anyone, but then you hear people doing certain things, and then people automatically like, oh, what is he doing? That's like a bad idea. You know what I mean? But it's like, this is when you're supposed to be doing that, and also, like you said, you know what's best for you. That's why you're doing that, and so like it's kind of ironic how that works too.
Yeah. Well, and so I was really lucky. One of the most pivotal jobs I had, just like one of those like high school jobs you just do it because your parents tell you to get a job. I worked as a groundskeeper, a maintenance guy, and a server at a retirement home.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was all over that place. So I got to talk to all the residents. And they were really open and like vulnerable when I had conversations with them. Like, I would ask, like, what is your biggest regret? Like, you're not to be that guy, but like, you're at the last leg. There's a reason you're here.
Yeah.
And every single one of them said something to the topic of like, I wish I would have taken more chances. I wish I would have done more things I'm passionate about. I wish I would have made more connections with people. And so it's just crazy to me that you have people in this life who are in their 80s, 90s, hundreds, who are telling you exactly what to do more of. And there's so many of them saying it that it's just common sense that you should be doing it. And yet those are still the problems a lot of people have.
I think there's a huge gap between how people communicate nowadays and that older generation. and there's not a way for them because they don't know how to get in contact with younger people and relay all those messages. So it's like there's a disconnect between the people who have all the knowledge about life, they've lived it, they've experienced it, and the people who are trying to make a life for themselves.
It's like the people who know and experience it are all the people who want to share it too. It's like none of us are holding it back. We just want it because we know that that's where humanity needs to go. Is everyone needs to awaken themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Well, the people who have gone through that know. The people who haven't have no idea.
And can you comprehend that without going through certain things?
I don't think so.
That's the
Seriously,
problem.
I truly think it's the real life version of the quote, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the horse doesn't know that it's
like
water.
force them to drink.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, and I don't know if either of you have had this, but there's such a difference in conversation when you bring up a topic like this to someone who knows what you're talking about.
Oh yeah.
Then it's like it sparks a really good
Otherwise,
conversation.
it becomes political.
But if you bring it up to someone who doesn't know what you mean, it's like someone just put glaze over their eyes. Like they just have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right back.
And honestly, I think if we continue to do podcasts, we should have some older folks, because those are the people that know exactly what we want to know.
Yeah, so I'm actually, I brought it up for the first time during the Dharma Unfiltered podcast, but right now I'm actually just getting a bunch of guests lined up to do interviews. And then I'm going to be releasing, because my business is called Best Self LLC.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to release a Best Self podcast that I just bring people on that I think have the knowledge people need to hear for moving the dial towards their version of their best self.
Right.
And so I think a big part of that is going to be bringing on people in their 50s, 60s, 70s who still have that mental spark,
Mm-hmm.
but who have the wisdom to say, for the audience who's primarily in their teens, 20s, 30s, this is the advice I can give you about what to watch for, what to do, what to avoid.
Right.
I think that's huge.
And I think you can get a good deal of information from your parents and grandparents. You just have to talk to them and ask those questions. And I don't think people respect older people like they used to anymore.
Oh yeah, I mean,
They don't give them the time of day. They just think they're old people. They don't know anything because we're the young generation. Fucking.
dude, I think this is kind of random, but it ties into this. I think the Native Americans did it right in so many different ways. One of them is they treated their elders like kings and queens because of the fact that they have so much wisdom, they have so much experience, and they've survived this many years on the planet despite, all the different things that could have taken people out. And yeah, nowadays we just think of people in terms of what is their utility. And so you look at someone who's maybe 85, walks around with a cane, and the general consensus is like, oh, well, they're useless. Like, what are they good for? But they're good for more information than
you can possibly fathom.
Yeah, exactly.
You just have to pick it out of them.
Mm-hmm. When I think that's what I absolutely loved about when this guy called me up for the first time, is I think that's one of the big things we're lacking right now is just the ability to have really vulnerable conversations with people you don't know.
Right.
Because so many people walk around with a wall up. Even with some of their best friends sometimes, they still feel they need to either have some type of facade or just have some type of wall up to protect their feelings and emotions. But
they need to protect their ego.
Yeah, definitely. And so if you are willing to just have open conversations with anybody who you come across, you're going to learn more, you're going to experience more.
I think people have an easy time connecting with you too if you can put an ego aside or just not have one in general. Kill it.
Yeah.
And I used to think that you should almost create up different egos for yourself to tap into that. If you're making music, you have a my King Yakum personality ego I pull out, but then I guess I don't know. Is there a place for that, or are you just not supposed to have egos ever?
So that's a really interesting question. So Lewis, you know who Lewis Howes is? School of Greatness guy. So he wrote a book called The Mask of Masculinity, and it talks about how, especially based on how you're raised, like, for example, he played football, so you're taught, like, be tough, don't show emotion, you need to act, like, macho and manly, but there really are times where being vulnerable will serve you, and showing your emotion and letting your guard down. So I think in that aspect, like, you don't need to act like someone you're not. But at the same rate, I'm gonna be a different version of myself when I'm trying to PR in the gym and I've got that aggression going.
Right.
Versus if I'm having a candlelit dinner at a date, I'm not gonna be the same
Yeah,
version of
Not
myself.
gonna flip the table over.
Yeah. So you do need to bring different versions of yourself to the table, but it needs to stem from your true self.
Right.
Whatever variation of that it may be.
Right. I think your personality is a spectrum, and you can connect to that spectrum through different emotions. And whatever that emotion may be, say it's like happiness, you can connect to, you know, that kind of funny, goofy personality in yourself. Or if you're angry, you can be that, you know, that asshole person. Or, you know, say you're sad, you can be, you know, that boomy, you know, type of person. It's just like,
Dude, I got a question for you, but I don't know where this will go.
Alright.
Should I just hit it?
yeah, hit it.
Alright, so obviously, like, you're like a legit, like spiritual mindfulness, like, you know, whatever you call it, like, goat. Anyways, anyway, so let me ask you this: what is God to you? Like, what do you believe that would be?
Yeah, so
I'm curious.
for me, I don't know that I believe God is a specific thing. I think my interpretation of God is essentially, so if you think about quantum physics, what string theory is, where every like particle or subatomic particle or every piece of everything is somehow connected. So I think essentially the universe and God are the same thing.
Yeah.
We just give them different labels because the universe is sciencey and God is very spiritual.
Yeah.
So that's exactly why I believe in energy and vibes and all those like hippie words that people think have no real scientific application. I mean, you listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza, who was, what was he, like a neurobiologist or something, like just something crazy. And he left that part of the medical field because he knew the spiritual applications that science is involved in. And I think it goes back to the quote that Albert Einstein has of, if spirituality was a glass of water, if you take a sip, you become an atheist. But when you reach the bottom of the glass, you find God. And so I think that's where science and spirituality, when you really get down to an all-encompassing perspective of what science is, that is God.
Yeah.
So you need to be able to find the balance of the woo-woo aspects of it and like the scientific, practical applications of it.
I think you have a cool perspective on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I feel like that's definitely
My opinion on it is that I think God is just an energy, and so there's like almost in a way like a golden energy that you're supposed to tap into, or your higher self, your highest energy. And when you can operate at that frequency, you'll always make the right decisions, no matter what.
So do you think have you heard of flow state?
Yeah.
Do you think that's what flow state is, or do you think it's even like a step above
What is
that?
I think
state?
it's flow state is like when basically when you're in a state of mind, or you have an energy to yourself, and you can basically just transmute it into whatever you want it to be, in a way.
So a good example of flow state is like when you're watching an NBA game and there's just a player who isn't missing a shot, and he's, crossing everyone over and doing all the right things. But if you were to say to that guy, like, oh, you're on fire, you're not missing a shot, that snaps him out of it and he'll miss a shot. So flow state is where you're not over analyzing, you're not
You're in your flow.
overthinking, you're not worrying, you're just in the flow of the universal energy of what's happening in the moment and making the most of it. So as soon as you think about whether or not you're in flow state, you usually snap out of flow state.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and then you start thinking all the other things that you don't want to be thinking about.
Yeah, that's what makes it so elusive. And on the Dharma Unfiltered podcast, I was talking about, like, if I could be in flow state all the time, even when I'm sleeping, I would love nothing more than to do that. But it's just not something you can stay in 24/7,
Right.
which is what makes it such a beautiful thing.
Right. You got to know the opposite side of it to be able to appreciate it.
It's almost like the stock market, you know?
Yeah.
When you gotta, there's ups and there's downs, but for you to experience those ups, there has to be downs.
Yeah.
My buddy always says that the stocks always go up, they just take a break.
Yeah.
It's kind of true. It's like you're always working towards your progress, and you're going to get there, but you're going to have your breaks here and there. And honestly, those are the times where you're put in a place where you gotta dive within and reflect on why it was, and everything really is a result of you.
Yeah.
And you got to focus on that, and everyone plays their own part. You want to hold people to standards, but you can't expect them to do I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, everyone's on their own path.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, well, and I think, too, even more than that, the downside is where you learn the most. So when you're in that upside, cool, you can celebrate, you can feel good, you can enjoy it, but you're not learning nearly as much as when life, business, relationships take a turn for the worse, and you have to really, like you said, dive within, learn about yourself, learn about the experiences you had, and that's what allows you to replace that downward trajectory with an upward one.
Yeah, I would agree.
And why are things even considered bad? They're just bad to you, because it's not how you envisioned it. Yeah, that could be the universe is very planned for you.
Your experience through anything has to do with what you choose to emotionally apply to it. Because you could take any single experience that you had in your lifetime and find some sort of good in it and find some sort of bad in it, even if it was the greatest moment of your life.
And you get older, you only look at the good normally if you're positive,
right?
Which you should.
Well, that's why I think it pays to be an optimist instead of a pessimist, because if you constantly think negative about things, you're gonna have basically you're just attracting bad energy to yourself.
I think a good litmus test for determining whether a person is an optimist or a pessimist is one simple question. What regrets do you have with your life up until this point? A lot of optimists will say, well, there's things I could have done.
I was going to ask you that, and I was hoping it would not come back to me because I can't even think. So I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, so typically someone who's more optimistic will have some type of answer. Even if they say they have regrets, they'll go back to, but, I enjoy the life I have now, blah, blah, blah. If you talk to a pessimist, they have a freaking grocery list and a half ready for you of this answer of well, I shouldn't have done this, and this really fucked me up, and blah, blah, blah. And they just go down the list, and then they say nothing about, but I'm really thankful for where I'm at. So That's just a really good way to determine someone's emotional attachment to their life up until this point.
I would definitely agree with that. It's an interesting way to put it.
We gotta get Reed. I was thinking about having Reed come over too.
Yeah?
We should set that up in the future.
Yeah, we really jumped right into it.
Yeah, we did. I don't know. I was like, oh man, we better get this. What is something that you came and kind of wanted to talk about, maybe?
So I was curious to hear more about the Oshtourage, because I know you brought it up. And
you're like a full outsider, so you just fire away. I'll answer a question.
Okay, so if you had, so how many people are the, I guess, core group?
Gang.
Yeah.
Gang.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Joe would probably agree. It's the super close dudes, who we assume are when we talk about we want to build a neighborhood, for example. It's me and Joe, we always know we got the spots there, and there's a couple nice houses right in the main spot. And who gets those spots in my mind, and this is just me making the shit up, is whoever is doing the stuff with us. It is actually working with us in that moment, because it's about the moments, And so, I say, the people that are making the music with us and that are here, those are the people that that's who's in, you know. But then you can't deny that like everyone else, like a lot of these people, like the people wear like this stuff, and it's just like all the other friends that we made over time. It's just that brotherhood, and we all in the same understanding, man. Like we kind of get this, you know. And
for me, it kind of comes down to who's got that mindset and who doesn't.
right, you have a lot to teach a lot of people still here.
Dude, that's why. So I think when you were in the bathroom, I brought up. So I'm gonna set up a best self podcast, and so I've got.
Oh, I heard it. I was in
Dude.
there, and I gave a prayer of thanks to God. I was like, thank you for working behind the scenes in my life and making positive influence. Because Reed on his Dharma podcast got me to start these, and now here we are, and you're starting this.
Dude.
And that was my whole goal, is to just slowly awaken everybody. And this is, you're on the mission, so it's perfect.
Yeah, so
I told Joe it's going to be great.
It snowballed like fucking crazy too, because I announced it on his podcast that I was thinking about doing one of my own.
Yeah.
And so I told like 10 friends that day that I was thinking about it. I've already got 22 interviews set up.
Yep.
For the podcast. Like scheduled and ready to go. I'm like, holy shit, dude. I wasn't even like ready to start this yet. But yeah, so I went out, got a mic, I didn't even have headphones. Like,
oh, yeah.
I had to go buy headphones for it, and like
We're using an iPad voice memo, and no one can complain about not being able to do something, because you just pull out your phone. I mean, you can.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you can do it right off your
It's
phone.
easy as that, right?
yeah. And I'm just gonna be doing it over Zoom, so like
Right.
no
Yeah, I
crazy
like
like
Zoom.
equipment or anything.
You
Like
can
have
put
to
that
have,
virtual
like, a
background.
Damn
Yeah.
studio like Joe Rogan or something. You
Yeah,
just
it's
do it.
literally
You do it
just I
wherever.
bought like a $40 mic, a $15 set of headphones, and now we're good. But yeah, it's gonna be one of those things. I just think.
You got a logo yet? Like a nice background?
Yeah, so Best Self has a logo. Another friend of mine who runs his own business designing logos,
Okay.
I had him design
What
it.
business is that?
I don't know if it's really. I think it's just his name, so like Jake Edwards
Oh,
Graphics
okay.
or something like that. But it's fucking sick. Or
Yeah,
at least
I
you
would
know
have to show me
I
that.
enjoy
I'll
it.
put that on here on the link for this.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. So you know that's really all that matters. So do you know
Exactly.
Tom Bilyeu Impact Theory?
I don't know about the impact theory, but I know him.
Okay, so he has a podcast called Impact Theory.
I
Top
probably
notch,
do listen,
love
but I
it.
don't even know.
So I wanted the logo to be kind of like that, where his isn't like the name isn't even in the logo. It's just like a symbol. Because I think that's so cool if you have like T-shirts or hats or things like that, and you have the symbol. I think your business has made it when someone on the street comes up to you and says they know that brand,
Oh, yeah.
and it has no words on
We
it.
should get a custom best self Oshtourage. That would make sense, because Oshtourage is like kind of, that's the whole vibe of it, is best self.
What would be cool is if you guys made like a sweatshirt that said Oshtourage and then had like on the back like the logos of like all the businesses of the people in the
Oh,
Oshtourage,
yeah.
or like up the sleeves or something like that.
Yeah, the sleeves would be cool. My mom said she wanted something with the sleeves.
Yeah, that'd be legit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think once you get into this space, there's no stopping you, because it's like you can do a podcast, you can have like group events, you can write a book if you want to.
Yeah. You writing a book?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go
So
for it.
we have a friend that always talks about numerology.
Okay.
Do you know like what that's about?
I've looked it up before, but I couldn't define it right now.
So he basically says that you have angels that try and communicate with you, whether it be people that you've known throughout your lifetime that have passed away, and they try and communicate with you, and the only way for them to communicate is through numbers.
If that's where you look for it.
Trippy.
So like if you notice like a number a lot, like 1111, you look that up, and then it'll give you a meaning, and then that's supposed to be a reminder from your angels as to where you're going. And like I've done that too. Like I see the same numbers all the time, and it's like it's a nice message,
It is, yeah.
So,
Another one I've heard, it's not numerology,
I just have
but
faith. I don't even need to look it up.
I think it's just a lot of, and again, whether it's actually true or not, I think it's a good reminder. So like I was taught, whenever you hear, like if you're just like sitting and you hear like a random really high pitch
I hear that
noise,
shit sometimes.
that's like your spirit guides like talking to you and trying to get you to realize something in that moment. And again, even if it's not true, who cares? Because it makes you
Bring
come
you
back
back
to the
to
present
the
moment.
present,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's little things like that. It's like, I honestly don't care whether or not it's real, because the placebo effect is
it's
real
real for you. That's
yeah,
what, so
exactly.
it is real. If it's real for a certain person, it's real. You know what I mean?
Yep.
'Cause
Yeah,
that's all you need.
that's something we talked about. Basically, life is just a perception to you, and whatever your perception may be on it, that's your experience with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at the finest details. Some people love the color orange. Some people want to puke on it. Like,
Right.
so when you see the color orange, it's different for people. When you
Right.
eat different foods, it's different for people.
Mm-hmm.
Some people love me. Some people want to come up and punch me in the face. I'm sure. So,
Right.
like every little detail of everyone's life is like a fingerprint on it, which I think is just so cool because it allows you then to migrate towards the people who have similar perceptions to you.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's going to be no exact match, but it allows you to kind of run with people that you vibe with the most. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Which is again why it's just crazy that, like, how did you even like find me or hear about me? Because I just got like a message on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
from
that's
you, like,
how we do. Yeah.
Like, that was crazy. Like, you were just like, hey man, like, want to talk on the phone? I'm like,
Yeah.
hell yeah, let's do it.
See, that's what I do. I do it for people like you do because it doesn't matter. I don't, let's say, for example, I reach 1,000 people over a certain amount of time. I don't want to meet with all 1,000 people. I want to meet with the people like you. And if I get like 2 people out of it, then that's 2 people that now you know another person because I haven't met another person that I actually care about, like Reed. And, you just keep going. It was ironic because when I first talked to Reed, I didn't even realize that was Evan Lamb's business partner for Catch Up Please.
Mm-hmm.
And like Evan was here like the day before for like a Halloween thing.
Really?
Yeah, I love it. You tried that Catch Up before?
No,
Oh,
but
dude,
so
I'm about to.
It's fantastic.
I got it.
I like it.
Is it?
Dude, you can eat it from a spoon. It's like spaghetti.
Really?
Yeah, and it almost tastes like marinara sauce in a way.
It's like the best.
A little bit. It's like a good balance between marinara and ketchup.
Yeah,
I think it gives it a better taste. It's not
I
so
wanted
like
to talk to him more about that on his podcast, but I know he was like, no, we want to focus on you. This is hilarious. First time ever even.
All right,
eating
listeners,
ketchup.
I'm currently putting ketchup on a spoon for Trevor, but this is not just any ketchup. It's ketchup, please.
I'll be completely honest. I forgot you were recording.
Yep. All right.
All right, bon appetit.
For ketchup, normally ketchup is disgusting plain. It's fire. It's different.
Dude,
Yeah,
that's good.
It is good.
isn't it?
Wow, that's really good.
But you could eat more. It's nice.
That's ketchup?
Yeah, dude.
I
Look at
mean,
the
it
bottle.
does
Look,
taste
it's
like
organic.
ketchup.
They changed the definition.
It's
of
like
ketchup.
it's not so tart.
Yeah.
So, like, what made them want to make new ketchup?
Like
I feel like that's not
Evan-
something. you would
Evan
think
told
about.
me he was at some sort of country club.
Oh, yeah. I
and
played golf there with the
they
guy
were
who started
golfing,
that.
and him and his dad sat down for lunch, and they had some ketchup. And Evan was like, "This ketchup tastes like fucking shit."
Yeah, it can be.
And his dad goes, "Why don't you just make your own then?"
Yeah, it's him and his
And he's
buddy
like,
doing
That.
"Yeah, I'm
it.
gonna
We
do
were
it."
sitting at that table, like where they like first came up with that too, at that place.
That's
He was telling me
crazy.
the story, and his buddy was there.
I mean, you guys should
You
leave
can
this
make
out.
copies, yeah.
Oh, thanks, man. I did like, and that's what I think is so cool. Like, people with the entrepreneur mindset, the business mindset, I feel like they have so much more fun with life in the sense that they're
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones who just live with their antennas up like that.
Because they know that your life can just become great at any moment if you just do whatever you want to do, make it great, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, think
That's
about it.
great.
Like, some random dude sent me a LinkedIn message asking to talk on the phone, not even about anything.
Right. I didn't even know.
Most people would be like, fuck yourself.
Oh, yeah. But I don't even. One of my buddies was like, why do you do that? Like, I used to be like really nervous and quiet. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't want to talk to me, like, whatever. We're not supposed to talk. Save me my time.
Yeah, and then like the same thing.
I
Like most people, if their parents, like if you didn't like a food, and they were like, "Well, make your own." You'd be like, "Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not worth it." That dude made a ketchup
I mean,
company
yeah.
because of that.
Yeah.
It was, dude, it's so funny because I don't know. I just saw the video today of them on FBLA, or not FBLA. It was like some Shark Tank thing or something like that. But they used to do like the FBLA. I don't know. Did you ever do that?
Mm-hmm.
It was like some business thing. But when Evan was here for the party, my buddy Sorb was here, and he used to be like the president of it for like the state. And it was just,
Dang.
it was funny. It's just like how all the connections and everyone we all play together. And it's
Yeah.
like, eventually, if you think about it, if you were to fast forward, we all probably do come together in the end. Like everyone will know each other. And
Oh yeah, dude. I want to do like one of my biggest dreams, 'cause I know you asked me about this in the phone conversation, was like I would love to just do like a high performers weekend seminar where you just bring in like all the people with like growth mindsets and like who are really looking to like live big lives.
Yeah.
And just bring them together to just network for an entire weekend, and then bring like expert speakers in like finance, relationships, business.
What are we gonna call it? What are you calling that event?
Well, I want to call it the Best Self Seminar.
All right, let's do it.
So it's like these people who are living the portrayal of like being their best self,
Right.
and bring them together for a weekend of just like ELE, everybody love everybody, like help each other out, make connections. I would love
That's
that.
exactly what happens here, dude.
Because then you go from like diamonds in the rough to like a bag full of diamonds.
Right. That's kind of what they do at Northwestern Mutual when they have their annual meeting.
Yeah, kind of.
Try and bring everybody together and like, not necessarily like force them to do anything, but they sit you down and they teach you like sales tactics and like how to be more personable and like so it kind of reminds me of something like that.
Yeah, and
I focused on your own personal vision, not the company's vision.
Right.
No offense to anything. It's okay to focus on your own visions.
Yeah, it's important to focus on your own visions.
I mean, otherwise you get lost in life.
I think that's what's almost sad is, you know, because I'm 23, so a lot of my friends just graduated in the last year. They're graduating this year, and they're getting into these jobs that they have been anticipating for 4+ years, and a month and a half in, they're like, I hate this. And it's like, great, you just spent 5 years of your life preparing for that and making sure that you're able to do it.
Right.
And now you want to, you know, completely shift gears. So you have to take that time and introspect on like what you really want to do.
Right. See, I think the biggest misconception is that kids are being sold the idea that they have to go to college to be successful. And that's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
It's really not. If you really want to be successful, you have to make those key decisions when you're younger, like when you're 15, 16, to make sure you save up money and not just blow it on like fucking useless bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing I want to do with my kids is I want to sit them down and read some books with them. Like, have you ever heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki?
Love that book.
That's like one of the main books I want them to kind of sit down and read, just because I love the message so much and it changed my perspective on a lot of things. Mm-hmm. But I didn't have anybody to give me that message or to like help me, you know, guide me to read that. It was like kind of it was my own decision to read it, and I didn't know it existed before, and I want to give my kids a head start on something like that, just so they don't necessarily need to struggle with anything like that, you know.
When I think it's cool, you make the point to say you're not going to just give your kids money and like tell them about it. You're going to actually have them read books from leading experts in the world on how to handle your finances. And I think that's something that needs to be instilled in kids way more, is to educate themselves about life tools. Not just math, science, social studies, but like taxes and insurance and rent or mortgages and how to handle your finances and just so many aspects of life that, like you said, you're just so unequipped to deal with.
Right. And so I read a study one time about a developing brain for a young kid, so from the ages of, you know, obviously 0 to 7. And in that time period, children are figuring out how the world works. And it's basically they're comprehending the laws of the world and their perception of the world. And so if you can fit those key important things and instill them with good values from the age of 0 to 7, then your kids are, that's basically the part of your life that forms your mindset for the future. Obviously you can change that because the brain is moldable, but it's just easier if you do it then, because kids will believe anything too. So I mean, you can lie to them and do some mischievous things to them, but that's not what you want to do. But I think just instilling those right values in kids from an early age, and I've thought about that, and what I want to do about it is, especially in like impoverished neighborhoods, I want to give kids access to books like that, because people in impoverished neighborhoods don't even know that information exists.
Yeah, I had a conversation. This was interesting. Up until maybe like a year ago, I was under the impression that no matter where you come from, you have the ability to succeed in life. And so my opinion was like anyone can do it. But then one of my coworkers brought up the really good point. I can't believe I didn't think of this before, but he said, unfortunately, it's not just, obviously, yes, if they knew that they could, then yeah, everyone's got an equal playing field. But you got to think, like, when you don't know where your next meal is coming from or your next paycheck is coming from, you don't have the mental space to worry about, how to get creative and build a business, or how to go out and pursue your passions, because your mental space is enveloped in survival mode. And so I think that's a really cool idea to offer, whether it's like a space or even just like, audio versions of these books to people like that, just to like, just people who are in that unfortunate circumstance, because it gives them an ability to level up.
And it would be basically like a non-profit organization that I would just be able to provide kids in impoverished neighborhoods all over the country. And it could even be like a website, and I do some sort of marketing campaign in like inner cities and, places where people are not wealthy. And even in just all schools across America, because I think they teach you how to be an employee, and that ship has sailed a long time ago. We are now in the day and age of automation, and these people who have, jobs doing, whatever, being a cashier, those jobs are fading away. And in the next 15 or 20 years, those jobs are going to be virtually gone. So people, that sector, that has to be replaced somehow, that, and you have to have some sort of information to teach those people how to move on from that sort of job and be self-sustainable.
So that topic really fascinates me, because I think I do think that we can advance past our own good, in the sense that human beings need something to do. Like, if you have a dog or a cat, they are perfectly content licking their nuts and walking around, eating, pooping, and getting pet. But humans need problems to solve. And so if you don't give humans the opportunity to go out and solve problems every day, they're either going to get depressed, they're going to get bored, they're going to have wicked anxiety, but overall they won't be fulfilled with what they're doing, or even less fulfilled with what they're doing. And so it piques my curiosity to think about, if we automate a certain percentage of things and that percentage of people don't have jobs, what are we going to do about that?
Right.
Then again, I'm not educated enough to answer that question. I have no idea, but it's just...
See, I don't know either, but I know that there's going to be an issue there as we go along. And there's already a growing wealth gap, and that's because people have not really realized that yet, that if you want to be successful nowadays, you have to be doing something besides a 9-to-5 job. Because you are just going to get blown past in the next 30 years.
Yeah, so I think another part of that too is, knowing that money is a tool and not just a tool for buying cool stuff. So most people, what they do is they get their paycheck. Maybe, yeah, they'll have like a 401k at work that they'll put some money in. But other than that, that's another thing you really aren't taught is how to diversify that income to build money, like more money with the money you've made. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a problem when you have people who they match their life and like their lifestyle to their income. So if you make a little more money, you buy a little nicer car, a little nicer house, a little nicer watch, a little nicer clothes, and you just keep doing that, as opposed to, you know,
living
make
below
more
your
money
means.
for 3 years straight. Now you have this much money to use as a tool to compound.
Right.
And so that's something I'd love to have finance people on my podcast to talk about, you know, instead of getting in the trap of like, you know, leasing a car that's too expensive, buying a house that's too expensive.
You need to live below your means.
Yeah, and really what the benefit of that is and how to convert that money into really a much better lifestyle.
And that's cool, and I would like to almost dive into the psychology behind that, because I think a lot of it has to do with social media and how people perceive other people, because everyone's out to make it look like, you know, I'm the fucking greatest person in the world, I got all these fucking toys and cars and this and that on Instagram,
So
and that's cool and all.
You don't
like,
even have a picture posted on your Instagram.
Yeah, because I can give a fuck.
You got a profile picture, that's it.
And I think people get so caught up in that, they lose sight of what's actually important and what they need to be doing.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Well, what stems from that, or I guess what this thing stems into that, is people are looking to solve an internal problem with external verification from others. Mm-hmm. Where, you know, if you feel like you're not enough, you're trying to fill that void with people telling you how cool you look or how cool the things you're doing are. And it's like, that's great, but how fulfilled does that actually make you feel on an internal level?
You're the one who has to face yourself in the mirror and has to actually help.
Yeah. And that's why people say money doesn't buy you happiness. You can't buy happiness. It comes from within.
Mm-hmm. Now, I will say...
It gives you something to work on in the physical world.
Yeah. I will say, money is a tool to amplify your happiness in the sense that if you're using the money to do things that
you enjoy,
absolutely.
I feel like everybody has to know that truth. We all know these truths. It's just whether or not you remember it.
Yeah. What's funny is, I don't remember, I think it was Rich Roll Podcast. The founder of Tom's was on there. I don't know his name, but he was talking about one of his...
Tom.
What's that?
It's probably Tom.
I don't know. Maybe it is. That would be... I don't know. But he was telling a story about how one of his mentors was just this extremely wealthy human being. Not just rich, but wealthy. And the guy told me, he's like, just so you know, you're going to hear this for a lot of people. He said, getting rich in and of itself will not make you any more happy than you are right now.
At the moment.
And he's like, what's funnier about even that is the fact that no one will ever listen to that statement, and they're going to do it anyways and find it out for themselves. Yeah. You're just going to hear more and more people say it. And so I think it's important, yes, if you want to get rich, I think there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you want to use that money for good. But just keeping in mind that you shouldn't tie your sense of value to a number in your bank account.
I feel like happiness is only being happy in that moment. Like, if you just think about it, look back and be like, yeah, I chose to be happy in, like, pretty much all the moments. I was positive and all the time, like, then, yeah, you were happy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, mindfulness, the first definition of mindfulness is to be conscious or aware of something. Right. And so when you're being mindful of the present moment, in as many moments as you can, you attach emotion to those, you're going to live a really fun life because you're actually experiencing it, as opposed to... the first thing that pops into my head is like when you see a group of friends hanging out and every single one of them is just like sitting on their phone and they're not talking. It's like, why do you even enjoy hanging out with that group if none of you are even acknowledging each other's existence?
I think they find comfort in knowing that someone wants to be there with them, but they don't necessarily connect with them in the way that they should.
Yeah.
I just realized, it's totally off subject, is like, Oshtourage like kind of stands for like the better life, and that's literally what your thing is. So it's like, if we made like podcasts, it'd just be like Oshtourage, better life, it just sums up both. Like for me, it tells people what we're about.
Yeah, dude,
Fit.
I'm ready to collaborate with anyone on anything right now, because like when you're in your 20s and you're building a business, the best thing you can do is get your name in front of as many people as possible. So that's what I think is cool about diversifying what areas of expertise I'm bringing individuals in for. Is I don't just want it to be another like health and fitness podcast or like self improvement. I want it to be a really practical, informational tool for people, where it's not just like, oh cool, I feel good about myself because I watched it. It's like, no, I want people to leave that hour talk having something they can directly apply that day to their life.
I think you would enjoy talking with our friend Chase too, because he
Yeah,
runs an Instagram page called Chase Life, and it's all about mental health. And he likes to get into the psychology of being sad or happy, or what chemicals your brain produces in certain situations and why. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with dopamine, one, because you get some sort of gratification from dopamine. It's like the I did a good thing chemical in your brain. Like when you smoke weed, dopamine is released. When you lift weights or you go for a run, you get that runner's high, dopamine is released. When you do bad drugs like heroin, dopamine is released. And that's how people get addicted to things. And I think kind of limiting yourself on stuff like that, like dopamine, you can kind of transform your brain into being rewarded in the right ways instead of the wrong ways, and fixing your mindset with that.
Well, and that's what I think. So I have an extremely addictive personality, and unfortunately for a while that wasn't exactly used for the best things. But when I figured that out and really like confronted that aspect of me and who I am, I realized like that can be such an advantage if you use that for positive things. Like when you get addicted to self-development, when you get addicted to learning, when you get addicted to all those daily habits that'll lead to a successful life, you have such an edge up on everybody else because they don't have like this inner urge to do it. They just are doing it because they know it's right.
Right.
But when you attach that addicted mentality to those things, you have the urge to do them and you're passionate about doing them, and it just makes it so much easier. So
definitely does, yeah.
That's why I think it's important to the things that you realize about yourself but you're trying to suppress, those can be some of your greatest assets if you know how to manipulate them into being so.
Right. We've talked about, because he's got ADHD and ADD and I have ADD, and I almost think that it's a superpower in some sort of way. It's like your gift from God. Yeah. And it just depends on how you use it, though. You have to use it in the correct ways, and when you do, and like your addictive personality, you use those in the right ways, you grow infinitely.
Yeah.
And exponentially.
You're good at directing your energy and the stuff you got.
What?
You're good at the energy directing.
Yeah. So I do a thing called NoFap, and where I know it sounds goofy,
like,
but
wait, what is it?
I don't jerk off like ever.
Okay.
And
that is.
And that's called no fat?
Yeah. It's funny. You should look.
Makes sense. I was like, what?
And so basically the idea is that your semen gives you all of your energy. As a male, being a male, that's where you get a lot of your energy from, and creativity. And it takes so many chemicals and calories and energy to make that, and to just dispose of it like that for no reason whatsoever is a huge waste of your potential. And when you hold on to it, you can harness that energy, and your sexual energy is like one of the most powerful energies that you have. And if you can transmute it into...
He sees me, goes right back on the bar.
If you can transmute
this is
it
Chase Life too, we're going to tell you about.
and figure out how to make it and form it into an energy that you want to put it into. So like a lot of the times I'll take it and I'll put it towards lifting weights or exercise or building mental health in some sort of way, because you can feel when it's there and when it's not.
That's tricky. So I know, like, obviously monks do that, though. And Jay Shetty, who wrote the book Think Like a Monk that he just released, he talked about, I think it was him who talked about it, maybe it wasn't, but someone I've listened to who was a monk, they talked about how they don't do that because, like you said, it stores that creative energy in your body and allows you to enhance that aspect of your thinking. So that's really interesting.
And I've done so many experiments with it, because I've been on and off practicing it for like 2 years probably. And this run that I've been on has probably been the longest. It's been like 3 months straight where I have not done anything. And you start to notice these changes happening to you externally, like new people will start to approach you, and especially women, they start to look at you a little differently. You carry yourself a little differently. And it's a funny story. I went out to a bar last weekend, and you can just tell because people are staring at you, and it's like Chase knows too. Chase, we're talking about no fap right now.
I told him that as he's walking. I was like,
and the benefits of it.
I'd say no fap is a discipline that has one of the most benefits, like most universal benefits, and it's one of the most like slept on, like disrespected kind of challenges out there. Like no fap used to be like a joke in like high school. Like people would be like, "Oh, you know fap," like you mess around with people.
oh, this is
But it's like
challenge.
that's actually like it's actually like
It's a mental thing.
if you're
That's what
in
it's
any field, no fap will most definitely benefit you, just in all aspects of your life.
That's so true, because obviously it boosts testosterone.
Yeah.
But then I feel like there is just also like, it's probably tangible, but to me, like those intangible benefits of whether it's like the pheromones that are being released or just the energy storage. I don't know what type of energy, but hey.
Well, it's nice because it's all natural. And it's like you don't have to do anything just by not like fapping. Literally, the increase in testosterone, one gives you a powerful effect with more energy, and plus if you're working out, it helps you build muscle mass. But at the same time, by doing no fap, then you also have your dopamine and serotonin. You can't get it as easily. So like if you're jerking off all the time, your brain's like, oh, was I supposed to sense
Especially
it?
No,
especially with the main part that you want to cut out is pornography too, because pornography is like, it's like tar for your brain.
Yeah.
It's just terrible. It's horrible.
It's like your brain has an urge to do something, and we get urges maybe to chase goals, to jerk off, to make money. Like you have all these dreams, you have all these passions, you have all these goals, and by jerking off, that's like a thing that you do so quickly, and then afterwards your brain's like, oh,
right.
I got my dopamine.
Come to your
I'm
senses.
good. I
Yeah.
can chill.
As
I-
Lil
I
Wayne
chill.
says, you come to your
Right.
senses.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the words Lil
And
Wayne,
everyone
as soon
knows
as
what
like,
that's
I'm gonna
like.
come to my senses.
It is literally like, it's almost like
has the effects of meth on you.
Yeah, so if you don't do it, then the only way you can get that release is by accomplishing something else that releases that amount of dopamine, which other people might do drugs, but if you chase your goals and accomplish any kind of like thing you really wanted to, you release dopamine. And if you get addicted to the dopamine that gets released from accomplishing your goals, that's when like you're really deadly, and that's why.
That's a weird. Yeah, I was just
Speaking
saying
of us addicted to dopamine, dude, type shit. He got a fucking burner phone, you know, one of those flip guys. Brought one of those back so he wouldn't be on his phone. So you just like train your mind to not be addicted to that kind of thing.
Damn, I like that.
Well, because I have like sometimes I'll get an urge and I'll just go on my phone and I'll go on Instagram and go, why am I going on Instagram? Like I have no purpose, I have no reason. It's just like. Just automatic, just phone, Instagram, phone, Snapchat. Like my phone's dry. Like I'm not responding to everybody. Like I just go on there to watch other people's life. No.
Well, and what's worse about that is it's like hypnosis, because all of a sudden you look and you've been on there for 30 minutes. You're like, I just wanted to check a text.
If they didn't say it was hypnosis, then you wouldn't just realize right now until it was hypnosis.
Yeah,
oh my god,
that is so true. Like you just get strapped.
Yeah,
and
you're in like a trance for a little bit there.
You just like one more scroll.
Well, yeah. So like with the dopamine rush, so I was talking about it on the podcast yesterday. Like I feel like too, there is a direct correlation between the level of difficulty of the task that you complete and the like intensity of the dopamine rush when you cross that finish line. So like I've been getting into like extreme sports and endurance athletics and things like that. 'Cause it's like, so I ran a 100 obstacle marathon, and you cross that, finish line, like you have a wicked dopamine rush.
I haven't even ran a mile.
Dude's still coming down from like a year ago.
That's crazy.
That's actually why I did it. Is I've been challenging all those like self-identifiers that you limit yourself with. So I've done athletics my entire life, but up until a year ago, I would look at like cross-country runners and all that. I'd be like, screw that. I'm never running more than a 5K. It's stupid. It makes no sense. It sucks. And so all of a sudden I'm like, wait, if I say I'm not a distance runner, what happens if I run a crazy distance? Like that just shatters that limiting belief. First thing I did, I'm like, all right, let's sign up for this race. So obstacle marathon.
That's so cool.
And so it's just things like
How
that.
did running that marathon go?
I got a grade 2 strain in my quad less than halfway through, so I had to run the rest of the race on an injured leg. So it took me a long time, but I finished. And as soon as I finished the race, I just collapsed the finish line, and I was like freaking out. I was like, all right, now I can be a baby.
Yeah. No, that's
nuts.
the cool thing about that too is like then the next challenge you try to accomplish, you're like, oh, well, I already did this thing.
Yeah, it's gotta be bigger.
Yeah,
exactly.
It motivates you. Like nothing seems impossible to you. The more you knock down the impossible thing.
Yep. That's why I really like. Do you guys know the group Yes Theory? Mm-hmm. They're YouTubers. I love the stuff they do with like just seeking discomfort. So that way, again, like you do one of them, it builds momentum. You do 3 or 4 of them, now you're like, all right, well, I can actually do some cool shit.
Right.
And it really is just building blocks that allow you to shatter all of these limiting beliefs. And who knows where they even come from, but I feel like it's the same thing. Like there are just those people with like the charisma and confidence that they just walk around with.
His name is Dr. Charisma.
Is it?
I'm not even
It's
capping.
because you practice it. Like it's something where you do it and you get that positive reaction. So you're like, oh shit, that works. So you do it again and you get better at it. And the people who don't practice it are usually the ones that are a little more like anxious or antisocial, and so it's just crazy to think how much potential you have if you're just willing to overcome the fear and like not limit yourself simply by thinking you can't do something.
That's like David Goggins.
Yeah.
Dude.
He wants to see how far you can go. He wants to see like how far he can push himself. It's not like he talked about how like it wasn't even about getting like big when he lifted. He just wanted to have the mental discipline and see like how far he can actually
callous his mind.
Yeah.
I love that phrase. He's like, you can callous your hands all you want, but if you're soft up here, you're not gonna do anything.
Nah, that dude.
I like the Yes Theory when they went to talk with Wim Hof. You know who that is?
Yeah, they spent 10 minutes in like the freezing river.
Yeah, he set the world record for like an hour and 37 minutes or something like that, completely submerged in ice.
Jeez.
And the cool part about it was that
his internal body temperature never changed throughout that time. And he's like, all it is up here. That's it.
That's insane. It's people like that. Like, obviously, yes, you can do it, but that's still one of those where I'm like, no way.
Yeah.
I would die for sure if you put me in that ice.
Yeah, it comes down, and I'm learning this more and more. It's like you have to have a good balance of like you have to have true confidence. Whereas a lot of people in today's world who have confidence, it's really just like I feel like it's false confidence or even like cockiness.
Cockiness for sure.
Because
yeah.
it's like when you have like a full confidence in yourself, you don't have to show it off. You don't have to flex it all the time. But when you have like a false sense of confidence, then you're cocky because you don't fully believe it in yourself. So you have to say it out loud just so you believe it and other people believe it. So that way you can reassure yourself that, okay, yeah, I'm still the man. But if you're really the man, you really have that confidence in yourself. You don't have to say anything. Like Wim Hof, like he didn't do it for money. When he first started taking those ice cold baths, I think he said that it was his wife died, and he was in the water and it just took his mind away. And then he just started pursuing it more and more. And he didn't do it to be cocky or I'm gonna set a world record. He was just like, this helped me. I want to see how far this can take me. And he learned all these other benefits. It seems like I might as well share this with the world, you know. And that's like a full confidence level that I really like, that you know, that we all try to strive for. Whereas now you see a bunch of cocky people on TV, all big talk, and it's just false sense of confidence. It's like a structure that'll break one day, you know.
People can see it too. They can see it in you, and they perceive it as an ego. People hate egos. They won't like you if you have an ego about yourself. Like, if you think, I'm that fucking, you know,
I'm the top.
the
man.
fucking
the
guy.
man.
Yeah. Fucking top pone.
I'm the biggest dude out here. No, I
People
think
just don't like that because,
humble.
yeah, people like someone who's humble and who's more calculated.
So what if you're a person trying to be humble, but you also just want to like be yourself and be like also at the same time inspirational? You're not trying to be cocky, but someone's perspective it obviously is.
Well, so I think it's all about your intention. So
Right.
people can tell if you're saying something. So, like, for example, I was talking about the marathon on Reese's podcast, and I said, I'm like, this isn't to brag, this isn't to toot my own horn. This is to inspire people that you can break those limiting beliefs.
That's what I did.
I did not enjoy any part of that race. Like, it wasn't fun. But as, like, a trainer and as a coach and as someone who is trying to inspire other people, you got to be able to back that up. Like, if you're taking that position and you're the guy going home eating McDonald's, watching Netflix, and, you know, not doing jack shit to better yourself, like, people are going to see right through that.
Mm-hmm. And adding on to that, it's also about the delivery too, because like the way you said it, you made it sound inspirational. You also brought it up, but you weren't just like, yeah, I run 100 obstacles, of course, no big deal, just jumped right in. Like it's all about the delivery as well. Like if you have those true intentions, then I think the way that you bring them out will actually inspire people, because your goal was to seek like inspiration, and the way you went about it. You showed like the inspiration. You broke it down to like, I didn't see myself as this much, so I said I'm gonna challenge myself, and I did it. Whereas if you're just like, yeah, I did it, what's up, you know, no big deal, then it's like, even if your like goal is to inspire people, it's like it doesn't really seem like it because you can't really tell by the intention. So like that's where the charisma is too, where it's just the way you say things, the way you present them. If you bring it from a place of like genuinity and just being sincere about it, it's really something I think you can tell, because when you said that, none of us were like, oh, this guy's bragging, you know, this guy's
What a
cocky.
dick.
Yeah. Now we're like, oh, wow, that's really impressive. And that's when you get those compliments that you're really impressive, is because like you say it to inspire people, and about the way like, hey, I struggled too, and this is what I did. Or, hey, I didn't feel like I was my most powerful self, and this is what I did. And it's not like, oh, I'm just my most powerful self, check me out, you know?
When I think that's a good distinction too, is you can tell someone's intention based on, like, going into the delivery. Someone who doesn't have good intentions won't talk about the journey. They'll talk about the accomplishment. But if you're really looking to inspire people, you'll let them know how shitty it was at the start and how horrible you were. And I think that vulnerability comes into play to show people like, I want you to realize that if this is something you really want, you're already probably better off than I was when I started doing it, and I was able to do it. So there's no reason you shouldn't be able to.
And that also shows true confidence too, because I'm a firm believer in being like your most powerful self and being your most confident self is being able to just be vulnerable because you don't see anything as like a threat, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I whenever people get over like depression and anxiety, it's a thing where like if you always like, you know, you use it to inspire people and use it as a good thing and always talk about it, you kind of take power away from that experience and you change into something that's inspirational for others. And by talking about your moment of vulnerability and talking about your moment of weakness, it shows that you're confident in yourself and that you're not scared. Nothing's going to threaten me. It's not going to come back and hurt me. No one's going to point this out and point holes in my armor. It just shows that I'm putting this on the table. I know this can't hurt me. I know it's not a threat, and I'm just using it to inspire people. And I think that shows as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost counterintuitive. Like, you need to be confident to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds so weird because you think of vulnerable as, like, frail, fragile, all these things. But it's like, no, you have to be a badass to be willing to be vulnerable around people, especially if you're looking to a public platform, public platform. These are people you don't even know, and you're hanging your laundry out in front of them. So it takes tremendous confidence to be able to.
And that's what you see
like that.
When you look at a whole bunch of successful people that you deem successful in their life. They all kind of put themselves in a vulnerable position. Like any artist that you ever look up to, they all get on stage, and that's a moment of vulnerability. They could sing bad, they could mess up a move, they could mess up a lyric, but they're just showing that confidence in themselves that I'm gonna put myself in this vulnerable situation. I'm on live television, but I trust in myself enough to just do what I gotta do. And it's just like that period of vulnerability that kind of shows how confident you are.
Another aspect of that, though, is beating on your craft till there's nothing left to put into it. Like, it for people who go out on a stage in front of tens of thousands of people, they've put in tens of thousands of hours to have that opportunity to do that. And I think that's where, you know, people see these, like, again, really successful people, and they're like, oh, well, like, they just have that special something, or they got lucky. It's like, dude, that person, let's say they're 35 and you've seen them on the internet as a sensation for 2 years. They probably started when they were 20, 21, 22. They've been doing the same thing and honing that craft for a decade. Like, you can't tell me that's luck. That's consistency and, like, always trying to, like, analyze and grow and improve, and if they need to, pivot. And I think that's just something that gets way undervalued, is the ability to take what you're passionate about and outwork everybody in the room.
Right.
Everybody in the world, heck.
So yeah, I think people should put more of their background story ahead of their performance, because it gives people this false idea that they just like woke up that day and they're like, yeah, bitch, I'm fucking rich.
Yep.
Or I fucking did this or that.
The thing I like about David Goggins is I thought, like, when I first heard about him, I'm like, oh, maybe he just turned like a part off, like he turned suffering off in his brain or something. Like he just turned himself to just, now he just only experiences happiness when he suffers. But he said, no, in his words, he said, no, this shit still sucks. Like he goes, it doesn't get like easier. It just gets harder. But the reason why he keeps going is just because he knows his whys, and he really just loves what it creates. He just loves the product of it. And he goes, it's supposed to be hard and will be hard. Like, there's no like sweetener about it, but that's what, you know, the why while you're going through the suffering, you're like, okay, it's kind of like working out. You know, when you're lifting, you're getting big. At the moment, like, your muscles are strained, they're tense. There's a lot of energy that you have to dispense, but you keep doing it because you're trying to get bigger. It's all about your goal. And the thing I like about vulnerability that's super nice is, for example, like, if you have a presentation that you have to give for work in 2 weeks, and you know that everyone's going to be there, then I bet you're going to put in all those hours so you don't look stupid, like, in that meeting, in that presentation. Yeah. But the problem is, when people live in their comfort zones too much and they don't step outside the comfort zone, they don't have that kind of, that push, that little reminder, that little kick in the butt. Because when you live in your comfort zone, you try to build up on yourself, and you're trying to work on yourself. You can do that, but there's really, like, you lack motivation for it, because, like, why should I work on my speaking skills if I'm not going to even go out there and speak, you know? Then you just kind of lay off on your skills, you don't harness your grind. But if you put yourself and say, in 2 weeks I'm going to perform here, in 2 weeks I'm going to give this presentation, in 2 weeks I'm going to do this, then you're not going to want to mess up in that vulnerable spot. And that's another thing I like vulnerable things. It's just that if you're in a vulnerable situation, then it's kind of scary. You kind of get fearful, but because of that fear, it's like a remind you to grind. Like, I got to remember this. I don't want to look stupid. I got to remember this song. I got to remember this dance move. I got to remember these words, this speech, because I don't want to look stupid up there. So you kind of harness everything you're doing.
Yeah.
10,000 hour rule.
Mm-hmm. If not more.
Yeah.
But I think another part of that is like the reason those people, because like, yeah, we talk about it, they put in the work, they got there, but also with that like 2 week analogy, I think if you can go into it not thinking, all right, I got put in this position to give this presentation in 2 weeks, and you go at it like fearful of like, am I gonna mess up, and am I gonna mess up? You're actively thinking in like a fear-based mentality. But if for that 2 weeks you're just thinking about like gratitude for being accepted to give that presentation and the potential of how many people you can impact, you're going to be way less anxious and freaked out and like sweating like crazy when you go up there, because you're focused on, even if there's one person in that crowd that takes the message I'm looking to give and like runs with it, awesome. Like, I just impacted a life, which is a crazy thing when you really think about it. And so I think people just need to shift their mentality of like, oh shoot, what if like there's someone in the crowd who judges me? It's like, cool, you may never see him again in your life, but what if there's a life you change in that crowd? If you can focus on that, it'll just put you in such a better position mentally.
I like that, because I read something the other day that said, you know, people can get thrown off by the idea that you have to like change the world, but if you can change the world for one person or change their world, that's the same thing, right?
That was on the Oshtourage story today.
Yeah, I read that fucking somewhere.
Like,
Couldn't remember where it was.
Yeah, drop the name in Oshtourage. Snapchat story? What was that? Instagram?
Instagram.
Oshtourage Instagram story.
What is that?
It said,
If
by helping one person, you may not change the world, but you may change the world for that one person.
Oh
yeah,
True.
that's a good one. I like
Something like that. May not be
I think
exactly.
that's pretty much exactly it.
Don't quote me.
That is true, because there's no like one piece of advice they can give to someone that will, like, I could say one thing to each of you, and then each of you will do your own thing with it.
Right.
And motivation and inspiration isn't like a one size fit all. So if you go in with the goal trying to like change everyone's life, you'll fail and be sad, and then you won't think that you did anything. But if you go in trying to think, I just want to change at least one person's life, or I can change this person's life maybe, or just like, you just want to do it for that one person. Like, I don't know if this will help anyone, but I'm throwing this out here. I'm being vulnerable just to help someone else's life. And then if you change their world, then I'd say that, you know, you're a good person.
I think that ties back to like the mentality people have with, let's say there's a room of 20 people and you give a speech, and at the end of the speech 10 of the people say they really liked it, 10 of the people just rip you a new one. I think one reason that we get so upset about that is we think about things in percentages. Like, when you're in high school, how are you graded? The number of things you got right over the total number of things you attempted. And so if it's a low percentage, you're upset. And so I think you need to shift that mindset to like, oh, I only got like 10 of the 20, to like, I just impacted 10 lives just from these like weird vibrations coming out of my face. Like, that's crazy how that works.
I made noises on a stage, and now 10 people's lives are different.
Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
Or I farted and I made somebody laugh. Changed it.
So I think again, and we talked about perception is everything, and I think that's a big aspect of it for when you're looking to impact and inspire people, is don't get caught up on the people who don't get the message. That's fine. You're not going to impact every single person, every single speech you give, but if there's someone who does get it, you did your job.
Yeah.
No, you can do it better, because if there's 1 out of 100 people who get it, maybe you need to work on something. But
And also, it's kind of like what you learned at your job at Northwestern is like, maybe you don't want to work with those 10 negative people. Like maybe their mindsets are like toxic to you, and why even prove something to them if they're just gonna bag you the whole time? You're right. We value those 10 negative ones too much, and we don't value like the people who actually want to listen to you, because then you won't waste your time there. They're actually gonna reciprocate or have a ripple effect of what you say to them. It's echoed, I guess.
I agree.
dude, I literally met you guys like 2 hours ago. This is gnarly.
Yeah, we can cut this whenever you want. I think it's been like an hour.
It's probably been more than an hour, I think.
I was like,
Maybe about an hour.
Hour and 20 minutes.
Does anyone have any last things? Oh, Chase, you have to give us your 3 truths in life.
Oh, okay. All right. I'd say my favorite truths in life that kind of help me keep going and help me live by it is just family is the one thing is, and I'm not talking about like the family that, you know, you're born with, just the family you choose and you see as family, is that if you always want to take care of that family, it's always kind of easy to find the extra strength if you relate it to something like that. Like, oh, I got to work some more hours so I can grind to make this business work so I can take my sister to that trip she's always wanted. And that, or if you're ever in a situation where you're kind of like, I don't know where I should go, I don't know what I should do, then you can think of, oh, what would my family say? Or if you're in a situation, you're like, am I a bad person? Am I a good person? Am I a crazy person? Oh, what would my family say? But if you have like a good structured like family, and like that's like chosen like family members, so like really good friends, really good actual family members, I think it's a nice place to kind of like always balance yourself off of. And then my second truth I'd have to say is character. And good character, I feel like in the beginning isn't always rewarded in this world, and it's kind of like it's kind of made to like turn everybody into assholes. like the world, like you kind of realize that in a lot of situations that the short term benefits kind of come from being selfish and kind of an asshole. But if you look at the long term, then if you have like really good character, then it will most definitely cause like a ripple effect that it'll like go to places you don't even know it'll go to. And then the last truth I have to say is, if you're always honest, and I mean like honest with yourself, honest with others, honest in what you're feeling, even the smallest things, like if you're always honest to yourself, then whatever comes to you will be what you needed. So, you know, I always like to make this analogy. If you're like someone who's like super like you hate women, you hate all religions, you hate every race, every ethnicity, every nation out there, and just a terrible, terrible person, but you hide that your whole life, you'll never change. But if you're always honest with everybody, then you'll see the flaws in kind of like your character. So even like if you have bad stuff about you, still be honest. Even if you're in the wrong, still be honest. So someone who else is honest can correct you and help you kind of change your character and benefit from it.
Yeah.
But
It kind of brings me back to what we were talking about before, with being confident but vulnerable at the same time. I like when people give me feedback and tell me I'm doing something wrong, because even through these conversations I realize things about myself that I need to work on and fix and be better, and it helps me build to be a better person. So I like when people give feedback and stuff, and I feel like most people should, but they take it the wrong way. Mm-hmm. They just take it as an insult.
I think that ties into like choose your family wisely, what he's talking about with like the people you associate with have a huge impact on how you think, how you act, what direction your life takes. And so when you set up groups like this where you can have these like brutally honest, deep level conversations, it calls you out on your shit in a way that helps you grow, instead of just causes drama. So I love that.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing for being able to get to that point is establishing love in the relationship as a foundation as soon as possible. Because now I know, like, for example, I know you love me and I love you, so anything that negative that I'm doing air quotes, negative that you say to me, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, I know Joey loves me, so I know he's not coming like actually to like insult me and be a jerk. And then you kind of take the honest feedback a lot better. Mm-hmm. And like if you always have that love, and no matter what you say, hey, we'll correct you, but we still love you. Then you kind of have that freedom to kind of say whatever you want to say and be corrected into the best fashion. In my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't studied this stuff.
No, I like that.
It's like they say in the Bible.
Do everything through love.
Just as iron sharpens a sword, so does another friend. But when you sharpen a sword, that's conflict, you know? To be able to be a sword, a weapon, to cut through anything you want and accomplish all your goals, you have to have that conflict, and you have to be sharpened with that conflict.
Right. Iron sharpens iron, baby.
Yeah, I don't think there's no resolution without conflict. It just depends on how bad you want to make it.
Without conflict, you'll be a useless pencil because you'll just be dull.
Right.
You gotta be sharpened, and that just comes from being cut. And sometimes being cut hurts, but
on the other hand, an eye for an eye leaves both people with one eye.
Yeah. Yeah, because if your intention is to take away or become even by kind of wronging someone else, and it's like, well, you didn't add anything to yourself, you just took something away from someone else. And that's the crazy thing about like anger and jealousy is like you get so filled with these emotions that when you act on it, you take a step back, you're like, huh, no, that didn't make much logical sense. like when you like those emotions like kind of fire up inside you, you make a lot of decisions that are just purely based on, oh, if I do this, it'll make me feel better. No, it'll give you short-term benefit of silencing these things, but
yeah.
Not in the long term.
Yeah, I had, so you don't know this story, neither does anyone who's going to be listening to this. So a friend of mine, very intoxicated, like deathly intoxicated, and I stuck a hand out to help him off the ground, and he just like grabbed it and went down and snapped my hand like a twig. And so when I was telling this story to people, one of the most common responses I get was like, well, how are you still friends with this guy? Aren't you so pissed? I'm like, here's the thing, it already happened. So and he already expressed how bad he feels. Me being pissed, A, is going to put me in a lower vibrational state, and B, is going to make someone feel bad who already feels bad. So there's no reason for me to be upset.
Right.
It already happened. I already get to tell a funny story out of it. Like, let that be that. But it was just crazy to me how common of a response it was. Like, why aren't you more pissed at this guy? And I think that shows, like, it's just unnecessary. There's no real reason behind it other than to just be pissed.
Yeah, I'm reading this book called The Untethered Soul, and they talk about how you might get a message from your girlfriend and she says something that really pisses you off, but you agreed to talk later that night. Now the whole day you're pissed and you're upset, like, oh, I'm going to rip this person a new one. And they say you play out this conversation 1,000,000 times in your head before you actually get to that point. You just tormented yourself and put yourself through anger and upset energies and just sadness for a whole 10 hours before you actually had to experience any of it. Like, I'll catch myself in the car and I'll be like mad at someone, be like, oh, what is wrong with them? Like, I'll get so mad. I'm like, how stupid do I look? Like, I'm angry by myself. like, why am I making myself angry? Why am I making myself sad by thinking about these other people who aren't here? And it's really something that's, if you allow it to rule your life, it's something that's very destructive.
That's it, dude.
True.
There you go.
What do you think? Wrap it up there?
That's why I say you gotta focus on the problems of the moment.
That concludes this episode.